Alrighty, so we have had one of our coldest winters on record, and I think we've even set some snowfall records for how much snow we've gotten this past season. And so what that means for our garlic babies is that the bed that they are in has literally had more than a foot of snow on it for the last 30 plus days. So what I want to do today as we get into kind of the back half of January here is head out to the garden, see how they're doing, if they've survived all of that snow and the cold weather. And then if they have, start thinking through kind of what we do next to get them ready for the springtime. So let's head out that way, but I'm definitely a bit nervous. All right, so needless to say, things are looking a little bit different to when I left you in the fall. So today is January 15th, and we have gotten a lot of snow through the winter here. So beneath the snow here, all of our garlic babies, the 100 plus of them, are hanging out, hibernating for the winter. And there's two things that we're going to do today, which is all focused on beginning to wake them up for the springtime. So the first thing that I want to get started on is clearing all of this snow off of the bed here. And the reason why we're clearing the snow off here is because as it melts, all of that water would be running through the bed. And that's going to ultimately result in some of the nutrients getting leached out and not staying in the bed, where the garlic and its roots would be able to ultimately absorb those nutrients. Be fine if we left it on, but I like to go the extra mile when it comes to my garlic babies. I'm gonna be careful right here because I have those sticks that I put in place still sitting right there, just fully buried in the snow. So one quick interesting thing to note here is that I've had a thermometer down where the garlic babies are living. And I grabbed a second thermometer that I had for the compost pile and just popped it directly into this little snowpack, this foot of snow that I have right here on top of them. And what's really interesting is that the garlic babies are actually a little bit warmer. And the reason behind that is because, again, remember in the fall, we put that mulch down to keep that separation between the cold air and where the garlic babies are living in the soil down beneath the surface. And so even right now in the kind of depths of winter with a foot of snow on it, it's reading just in and around or potentially just right above freezing level, which is a really great sign for how they could be doing down there. All right, so the snow is off, and the second piece that we're going to be doing here today is just pulling off that landscape fabric. So last year I actually did that on January 1st. This year with all the snow, I'm doing it on January 15th. And the reason why we're pulling off the landscape fabric here is because last year, the garlic babies, they started coming through the surface around the end of January, beginning of February. I suspect that it'll be a little bit later this year with all the snow that we've gotten, but I want to pull these off just so that the babies can start to kind of wake up as they see fit as we start getting into the slightly warmer and slightly longer days. Alrighty, and so sure enough, there is our mulch from the fall that we put down. And what's actually quite interesting to note here is that I can see a couple of the garlic babies have been actually already trying to work their way through the surface here. And so I'm happy that I popped that landscape fabric off just so that they're not fighting or anything along those lines. I wouldn't be surprised if that growth is actually from the fall time. Okay, quick little intermission here. It is 2 days later and I was just too curious. I can't quite figure out whether that was new growth that has happened over the last little bit or if that was growth from the fall time. So we're gonna head over to the garlic babies and do a little something. All right, so to get to the bottom of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back this leaf mulch just a little bit so that we can see whether or not a lot of those garlic cloves are starting to come through the surface or even maybe just resting just a little teeny tiny bit beneath the surface. So I'm gonna start pulling it back here. Ooh, okay, okay. I like what we see. All right, look at this. So there are tons of them that are already coming through the surface. And I'm surprised to see this because, again, there was a foot of snow that was on top of here that I thought would probably be kind of slowing them down on their growth. But this is very similar to what I saw at this time last year. Now, one really important piece to keep in mind is that, remember that thermometer that I showed you where it was down at the root zone? It was at or just above freezing level. So it makes sense that they're actually doing really well. And that's a big part of why we use that leaf mulch through the winter. And so what I was thinking actually, and I don't recommend doing this at home, is to dig one of them up so that we can actually take a look and see what's happening down at the root zone there. So I'm gonna grab my hory here. I think this one here looks really good to dig up. And so all that we're going to do is just go down to it. Let's see if we can get into it. There we go. Man, I just heard the roots pop in there, so that's pretty interesting. Let's see what we got. Wow, wow. Look at that there. Amazing. So as we can see, you know, this root system has been developing all through the winter here. And when I think about it a little bit more, it's not necessarily completely shocking because again, we had that leaf mulch over top that would have been keeping it nice and warm down there. And so in that warm environment and surrounded by worm castings, this garlic clove has been able to really just kind of develop its root system over the course of these dormant winter months. So I am really over the moon, a little bit surprised with kind of how well they're looking and the fact that they're already coming through the surface with all of that snow that had on top of them. I am stoked. Stoke meter is extremely high right now. And so with that all being said, I can now pass it back to Jordan from 2 days ago to begin wrapping things up and to talk through what to be expecting and what to be doing next in the garlic growing season. So what happens next in the garlic growing season? Well, these babies are going to continue to naturally just wake up. And once they've kind of all made their way through to the surface and we're into longer and warmer days, we're going to give them their first feeding of superfood plus worm castings. So that'll be in 4 to 6 weeks from now or so that I guess. I'll catch you at that time for that first feeding. See you then.